A victim who died smiling despite the signs of struggle on her body. All the bodies were found with their eyes open, as if the killer insisted that his victims witness something unknown. What if every name on a secret list had already been judged, and the killer was simply delivering the verdict? The silence that bled. At 3:17 a.m., the emergency dispatcher heard nothing but breathing. Not panicked breathing, measured, calm, almost patient. Then a voice, low and steady, said, "I think someone is dead." The line went silent before the address could be traced. When police arrived at the apartment 40 minutes later, the door was already open. The smell hit first. Blood has a smell most people never forget once they've encountered it. A heavy metallic sweetness that clings to the back of the throat. It coated the hallway like invisible fog. The living room lights were on, illuminating a scene that looked staged with cruel precision. The victim, a woman in her early 30s, lay in the center of the room. Her name was Eleanor Price, a data analyst with no criminal record, no known enemies, and a reputation for being painfully ordinary. Her body told a different story. Her throat had been cut so deeply, the couch behind her was sprayed with arterial blood. Her wrists were bound with duct tape, but loosely, almost carelessly, as if restraint had never truly been the goal. Her chest bore 7 stab wounds, none immediately fatal. Defensive wounds carved across her palms suggested she had fought hard, desperately. What unsettled the officers most was her face. Her eyes were open, and she was smiling. Detective Marcus Hale arrived shortly after sunrise. He had seen mass graves overseas, domestic murders that had turned kitchens into slaughterhouses, but this scene stopped him cold. The smile wasn't rigor mortis. It was deliberate, forced. Someone had carved it. Thin cuts stretched the corners of Eleanor's mouth upward into a grotesque parody of happiness. It was meticulous work, controlled, careful, intimate. This wasn't rage, Hale muttered. This was time. The forensic team confirmed it. Eleanor had been alive for at least 30 minutes after the first wound. The killer had paced the violence, paused, watched. On the wall above her body, written in her blood, were 4 words. "Tell them you're sorry." No fingerprints, no forced entry, no sign of theft. Her phone was missing, but her laptop sat untouched on the table, open to a spreadsheet filled with names, dates, and color-coded cells. At first glance, it looked like work. On closer inspection, it was something else entirely. Every name was crossed out in red, except one. Eleanor's neighbors heard nothing. No screams, no struggle. One claimed to hear faint music around midnight. Classical, maybe, but assumed it was coming from another apartment. Security cameras in the building malfunctioned that night. Not broken, disabled, professionally. Hale didn't like coincidences. He began with Eleanor's past. No abusive relationships, no restraining orders, no obvious secrets. She volunteered at a community literacy center, paid her taxes, called her mother every Sunday. Then he found the email, buried in her inbox, flagged but unopened, sent 2 days before her death. Subject: do you remember what you did? Body: I do, and so will everyone else. The sender address was gibberish, burner-generated, untraceable. Hale felt the familiar tightening in his chest. This wasn't a random act. It was a reckoning. The autopsy revealed something worse. Tiny injection marks along Eleanor's neck and thigh, traces of a paralytic agent, enough to immobilize her without rendering her unconscious. She had been awake, unable to move, forced to feel everything. The smile suddenly made sense. The killer wanted her to look like she had accepted it, or deserved it. Hale worked backward through her life. School records, old jobs, volunteer rosters. That was when he found Project Atlas. 10 years earlier, Eleanor had worked briefly as a junior analyst for a private firm contracted by the state. The project involved predictive data modeling, flagging individuals statistically likely to commit violent crimes. The program had been controversial, quietly buried. Hale pulled sealed court documents, names, dates. One column labeled "Action Taken." Every name in Eleanor's spreadsheet matched a person who had been arrested, or worse, after being flagged by Atlas. Some had lost jobs. Some had lost custody of children. 3 had died in prison. 2 had committed suicide. One name stood out: Daniel Cross. Status: cleared. Outcome: self-inflicted death. Daniel Cross had been a high school teacher. He had been falsely accused, investigated, fired, and publicly shamed after Atlas marked him as high risk. The charges were dropped, but the damage remained. He hung himself 6 months later. His wife disappeared shortly after. Hale found her 3 days later, or what was left. Lydia Cross was discovered in a motel bathtub 2 states away. Her wrists were slit lengthwise, deep and uneven. The water had long since turned pinkish-brown. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing. On the mirror, written backward in blood so it could be read from the tub. She watched him die. The medical examiner confirmed it. Lydia had been dead for less than 12 hours. Hale's pulse pounded. This wasn't over. The pattern emerged quickly after that. Former Atlas employees, review board members, executives who had signed off on the algorithm. Each death was more violent than the last. One man was beaten to death with a keyboard. A woman was drowned in a pool of printed reports. Another was found with his eyelids removed, forced to see. Every scene carried a message. Every victim had been involved, except the final name. Eleanor Price hadn't just worked on Atlas. She had falsified data. Hale found internal messages, encrypted and hidden, where she had altered risk scores to secure funding bonuses. She had knowingly destroyed lives. She had known, and she had kept a list. Why? Because she knew someone would come. The killer finally contacted Hale on the 4th night. A phone call, no number. "I'm not finished," the voice said. Female, calm, controlled. "Who are you?" Hale asked. A pause. "Someone who waited too long to scream." the call ended. Hale reviewed Lydia Cross's psychiatric records: grief counseling, PTSD, severe insomnia. One note stood out: patient exhibits dissociative calm when discussing violence. Lydia hadn't disappeared after her husband's death. She had planned for 10 years. They found the final location too late: an abandoned courthouse scheduled for demolition. Inside, they discovered a single room lit by candles. In the center sat a chair. Strapped to it was Marcus Hale, or rather, a recording, a video. The real Hale stood behind the glass watching himself on screen. The camera turned. Lydia Cross stepped into frame. "You were supposed to save him," she said softly. "You read the report. You closed the file." Hale's breath caught. She smiled, the same smile Eleanor had worn. The recording ended. Behind him, Hale felt something cold press against his neck. Lydia's voice whispered, "Now tell me you're sorry." The official report said Detective Marcus Hale died of self-inflicted wounds during an undercover operation gone wrong. The case was closed. The Atlas files were sealed. But sometimes, late at night, emergency dispatch still receives calls with no address, just breathing, and then a voice. "I think someone is dead." And somewhere, a list grows shorter.